Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee with Her, Season 2, Episode 4. In this episode, I'll be drinking an iced aroma from Aroma Espresso Bar, and what we're going to be talking about is AI and the integration within the recruitment process, okay? So we're going to be talking about how AI is integrated, some of the disadvantages of this, and we're really going to be questioning certain decisions on how AI is integrated within the recruitment process. So with that said, let's get started. Okay, so let's start off by picturing what it looks like to look for a job in 2025. So you probably go online, you find a job that you like, you go through the job description and the job requirements. Instead of manually updating your resume, what you do is you copy paste the job description into ChatGPT and you ask it to update your resume strategically. Or instead, what you probably do is you go to an AI platform and automate the entire job application process for you, right? And why do you do it like that? Well, because you very well know that the only thing gatekeeping you from moving forward in the application process is not necessarily a recruiter, but as a simple line of code, right? And the truth is, a lot of companies these days do use AI powered systems in order to sift through job applications. So let's just take a look at how AI is used within the entire recruitment system, okay? So the reason that AI is used within the recruitment system is to minimize the workload on recruiters, if not eliminate recruiters completely. And a lot of functions that applicant tracking systems actually provide are things like they can schedule interviews, they can screen resumes, they can even facilitate interviews like chatbot interviews, and they even extend offer letters. But in this episode, what I really want to talk about is the applicant tracking system used for resume screening. And the way this works is that candidates are generally given a score as to how much of a match their application is to the job description. And this sounds efficient, right? But here's the thing. These applicant tracking systems aren't necessarily always the best option for resume screening. And let's unpack why. Well, first of all, not all ATS providers actually safeguard candidates' personal information. And if we look at it from a very functional perspective, we can take a look at a lot of things. So, for example, if a qualified candidate doesn't use certain keywords, then they're automatically ruled out of the system. And they aren't ruled out because they're not qualified. They're just ruled out because the ATS is not smart enough to detect their capabilities. Something else to consider is that ATS systems are trained on historic data. So what that means is that there's a lot of bias within the system, and unconventional transferable skills and experiences won't be understood by the system, right? And what this does is it actually leads to a lack of diversity within the system. And if you think about it, diversity is actually a key ingredient in order to ensure growth and innovation within companies, right? Something else is that AI can't actually read soft skills or passion. And these two things are actually extremely important. Think about it. If you have a candidate who can perform the job but has absolutely no passion for the industry, then they're only going to remain a mediocre candidate, okay, or a mediocre employee. But if you have somebody who has passion for the industry, then you know that they're going to go above and beyond and make the company proud, right? But unfortunately, because companies are using AI powered systems, these factors actually go unnoticed. And here's a twist. So, you know how qualified candidates who lack keywords are automatically ruled out? Well, unqualified candidates who use a bunch of keywords and buzzwords have more of a chance to get noticed by a recruiter. Because let's be real, it's 2025. Candidates know how companies recruit. In fact, the 2025 market trend report by career group companies show that about 65% of candidates use AI at some step of the recruitment process. So whether that be for career guidance or for updating their resume or cover letter, AI is used. So that raises a really important question, right? If most candidates are using AI tools to tailor their resumes to pass the ATS, then how effective is the system really? Not so much, right? How much time of the recruiter does the system actually save? Or does the system just make it harder for recruiters to select appropriate candidates to interview? The recruiter still has to look through majority of the applications if they all score highly on their match, right? And not to mention that now that now that the resumes are filled with a bunch of keywords, it becomes even harder for the recruiter to discern as to which candidate is actually a good match, right? And if we look at it from a candidate's perspective, candidates aren't even necessarily looking to match their real skills with the jobs anymore. They're just looking to make sure that they have a certain keyword count. So what's the alternative? If we know that the current system is flawed, what can we do about it? Well, let's rethink the way that we evaluate candidates, okay? So perhaps what we need to do is we need to move beyond static resumes. Perhaps we can consider that instead of just having candidates submit a simple resume or a cover letter, which can both easily be manipulated by AI, perhaps a more interactive application portal. For example, having on-the-spot questions where candidates are given a certain time frame in order to answer a question, not written response, but actually a verbal response. And what this does is it actually prevents them from using AI because, first of all, if they do use AI, it's very easy to detect if somebody's reading like a script or if somebody's actually thinking, right? And what these on-the-spot questions do is that they would really prevent people from applying if they don't want the job, right? Because it's kind of a tedious process. So they'll be like, oh, do I even want this job, or am I just doing it in order to meet that probability where if you applied 15 jobs, you're going to get one job, right? So that's one thing it does. And what it also does is it actually allows recruiters to test communication skills on the spot. And overall, what it does is it gives qualifying candidates an opportunity to actually stand out without having to compete against perhaps unqualified candidates who are simply getting through because of simply using a bunch of keywords in their application process. And something to note about these on-the-spot questions is that it's really important for there to be an intermediary step where the voice is converted to some AI voice that is completely neutral, just to eliminate some bias in that sense as well. And these extra steps aren't actually to make the process harder. It's important to realize that it's just making the process smarter such that companies are getting candidates who apply to jobs that are actually aligned with them and not necessarily just applying for the sake of applying. And you can differentiate humans from AI generated fluff, and it actually gives recruiters a chance to make more meaningful decisions. And of course, this is just one of the many ways that we can be a little bit more creative with the application process. But the purpose is to make the application process a little bit more creative in order to attract the right talent. And that is all I have for today, folks. So until next time.
This program is meant for entertainment purposes only. It is not meant to replace any educational programs or represent a professional coaching program. All examples provided by the author and speaker are purely anecdotal and are not meant to represent any institutions or companies in affiliation with the creator.